Welcome back, everybody. This is Brother Meat here. Today we're going to do a slightly different deviation from what we've been doing. This is going to be builds for those of you that want to play the game, either with or without mods. So there's going to be several videos coming. This one's going to be using a mod, in this case Eldritch Arcana, and several videos upcoming for that as well. This is going to be for not your main character, but for your teammates. Not going to do every teammate, but the definite core. So we start off with people like Harrim, Lindsay, Valerie, Jathal, Amiri, Tristan is easy enough to get. And then after that, you get Ekin and Knock Knock, if you take him on the party with you, of course. Those ones are probably going to be so late in the build that I can't actually grab them at least quickly. So what I'll do for those is I'll make my main character to be a clone, quote-unquote, of Knock Knock or Ekin or Tristan. And as such, I'll level them up and say, well, this would be how you would kind of do it for Tristan. This would be how you would kind of do it for Knock Knock, and give you my take on the various play styles for those characters. Because some people are playing this game on console now, and therefore don't have access to mods, I will do an entire set of videos using just the vanilla version of the game. So you guys have a feel for what you would be capable of doing as well. Because again, I'll be using every trick in the book to make each character reasonably decent. They won't be, min-maxed to the extreme. Today's example, again, will be us using Harrim, using mods to make Harrim a solid cleric. Now, he is not the best healer for your party. Tristan would be the one I would recommend for that. Harrim, on the other hand, he has some things going for him that Tristan does not. For instance, he's reasonably strong. Here, let's actually show you what we have for gear here. He's reasonably strong with a strength of 14, starting off at level 1. We level that up to 17 by the end of this build. His dexterity is kind of lackluster. This is where Tristan excels. Harrim has a default dexterity, I want to say, of 8. And again, that's part of the fact that he literally is clumsy. But he can also wear full plate mail. Tristan cannot wear any armor. So again, you can see the appeal for someone like him being used as quote-unquote a tank. So Harrim, I use him for a frontliner. He can heal, sure, and as any cleric, decent cleric can. But because his charisma, his wisdom 18 to start, and of course we'd level that off at a solid 20, but his charisma is a solid 10, and as such he can't use his main ability. Let me show this to you. Your channel positive energy. You have a choice when you make your cleric of either channeling positive energy or negative energy. If you channel positive energy, you get 2 abilities. One is an AoE heal, one is an AoE damage to undead. If you channel negative energy, which he does not do, but if you're like an evil cleric, quote-unquote, you could channel negative energy in a circle and damage the living, or channel negative energy in a circle and heal the undead. So you get the feel here for what we're shooting for. He's clearly a healer type. But the downside of those heals are they're AoE, nothing wrong with that, but they don't discriminate. What do I mean? Literally, he will heal in combat. He can do this 3 times a day. At level 1, he can heal in combat, but he would also heal the living bad guys in a circle around us. That's clearly a weird thing. So what would you use that for? A, to heal yourself in a pinch if you have no choice. I mean, it's better than dying. Or B, more likely, using it at the end of the combat, after combat's over, to top everyone back off. Like fill them up a little bit. And that's how I would use Harrim for those type of abilities. Same with his heal spells. He can use them in combat, sure, that's definitely something he should do. But by and large, I consider him a buffer, someone that's capable of increasing his own or a teammate's physical stats, whether we're talking armor, attack bonuses, physical strength or constitution with his spells. So he will either pre-buff up before going into battle, or in battle be applying buffs as needed. Can he heal in a pinch? Sure. Will he be the best healer on your team? No, that's Tristan. He's amazing at healing. And again, you will love having Tristan on your party to the point where you almost forget that you even had Harrim. But if you wanted to take a decent frontline tank with you, Harrim is okay. Let me rephrase it that way. I know that sounds like a ringing endorsement, but again, he's not great. Why is he not great? Because when you start off with a strength of 14, a dex of 8, and a con of 16, you're not the best character for like wielding heavy armor. The strength is good, not great. The con is nice, and the fortitude saves are nice as a result. The extra hit points are nice. Again, you'll appreciate all these things. But the 14 strength is really lackluster. He's not very good at swinging a weapon. He's a cleric, which means his base attack bonus progression is 3/4. As you see, he finished at straight Cleric level 20 at a plus 15. That's a 3/4 progression. So at level 1 you get nothing, at level 2, 3, and 4 you get a plus 1 each level. And then at level 5 you get nothing again, and then at 6, 7, or 8 you get another base attack bonus. That's a 3/4 progression. So he's right square in the middle. Not as bad as, say, a wizard who only gets a half progression, so every other level they get a bab, but not quite like a fighter who gets it at every level. So you can see the appeal here. So he's good at fighting, not great at fighting. He's good at spells, but not great at spells. So what does he really jive at? And that was really why I made him the way I made him. How did I made him? Well, first, without using mods, you would be given this character at level 1, period. They'll probably be level 2 by the time you get out of the tutorial, but by and large, he starts with your party in the tutorial at level 1. So this is already prearranged, preordained, however you want to think of it. So he has heavy armor proficiency. Now, if you use mods, for those of us that are PC users, I can take him down to negative levels, or 0 levels, however you want to think of it, and then level him up. So again, I'll take away his cleric levels and then make him something else. Again, I'll do that in another video. It's something different, but I'll try my best to keep his core stats the same, more or less. But I won't be a cleric. I'll be like a druid or a monk or whatever I choose to pick with Harrim. And again, I think I have a good idea for you on this one. But this one is just a modded video for what you can reasonably achieve if you just go straight balls to the wall. He's a cleric. He's going to be frontlining. He's going to be wearing heavy armor, using a heavy shield, more or less, and wielding a weapon of some kind. That's what we've made here today. So now you'll see that I have, with heavy armor proficiency, we gave him banded mail probably right out of the tutorial. Of course, as soon as you can get him into full plate, the better. Of course, the sooner you can get him gear that buffs his strength, the better. Because again, while you have the team as a whole carrying capacity, is depending on who's on the party and how strong everybody is as a whole, you also have your own personal carrying capacity. And as you can see, he's buffed right now, but without that buff, he'd be pretty overweight. And to the point where he would literally be lounging behind. Again, with all these extra shields and maces that he's wielding here, he really would be having difficulty if he didn't have some strength buff besides. So again, something that's going to be of concern eventually. Just keep that in the back of your head when you're leveling up a character like Harrim. Now, having said all that, get back there. Having said all that, what did we do with him? Well, he is a cleric. He has 2 domains. We don't get to pick those. Those are already defaults. So Chaos domain and Destruction domain. We'll talk about spells at the very end of this video. For feats, only he gets feats is as he levels up here at every odd level. So 3, 5, and on up all the way to 19. So what do we grab? I decided if he's going to be a frontliner and someone that buffs up, it's not really important for me to make sure his weapon is amazing or to make sure that he has all the meta magics in the world. It's more important that he has solid hit points, solid saving throws, solid armor class, and that's really kind of where we build this character. So you see we went heavy armor focus right off the bat. So as long as he's wearing some sort of heavy armor, doesn't have to be magic, doesn't have to be mithril. Of course you'd want all of those things, but if you just give him plate mail, banded mail, or a half plate, and he wears it all the time, which of course he will, he'll get a +1 to his armor class. I know that's not thrilling, that's certainly not exciting, but early game, an extra bonus to your armor class is helpful. Give him a decent heavy shield, give him a decent magic heavy shield the first chance you can, and he will do well for you in the front ranks. Notice at level 5, we've given him toughness. Again, some of these are flip-floppable, you can switch them around as you see fit, but early on, it's definitely helpful to have more HP. Again, crits go through, and if you don't have another 3, 4, 5, all the way up to level 20 extra HP, sometimes you could get floored with just a bad roll. And again, it's very unforgiving this game, especially if you're doing it on a harder difficulty. So every little bit helps. So toughness, a solid choice. We went here for weapon focus. Now this is a little late, you may think. Level 5, if you got a full team of 6, and you are sharing the XP like the game default to right off the bat. You beat the first chapter, do as much more or less as you can in that first chapter, and everyone will finish right around level 5 or level 6. So this is really into chapter 2 when you get to level 7. And you're like, well, why wait so long to pick a weapon? Shouldn't he pick a weapon right off the bat? Well, what's the chances you're going to find him a decent weapon right off the bat? See my problem? And without actually knowing what kind of weapon you could realistically find in this game, you really don't know this. Now, of course, you can Google it, look it up ahead of time, or listen to me tell you that heavy maces are prevalent in the game. I know that. I could have picked it down here at 3, but I'd rather have the armor. I could have picked it here at 5, but I'd rather have the HP. Here is a solid chance. By now, you've probably either found yourself at least a heavy mace that's +1, bought one from a vendor, perhaps. Even a masterwork one is a solid choice, but you can get that at Oleg's probably at level 2. So that's not too impressive. But the real problem I find is when I pick a weapon for a character like this, who's not really a weapons guy, and like a fighter, not a sword saint, not someone that's going to be like, rapiers is going to be his thing from time immemorial. That's all he's going to wield, or he's going to be all about the daggers or short swords or whatever. This character can pick up any weapon that he can pick up. In this case, it's not many. It's simple weapons, light armor, medium armor, shields, and of course with his his heavy armor proficiency, he can wear heavy armor. And of course, as any cleric, he can have the weapon of choice of his deity, which I believe is either flails or heavy flails. So he has that as an option as well. So why go heavy mace? I happen to know there's not very many like warhammers in the game. There's not very many battle axes in the game that are amazing. There's some, not a bunch, maybe like 1, 2, 3, but there's a ton of heavy maces. And by chapter 2, I think you should probably have specialized in some kind of a weapon. That doesn't mean that's the only weapon you equip him with. If you come across, a heavy mace +1, give him this feat, he'll be fine. If you come across a battle axe +3, equip it in one of his off slots. It's still better swing, it's still better damage. Yeah, heavy mace is a good choice, but wait until you get a better one. Don't get rid of the original, but the point's still the same. Don't tie yourself down to one weapon. And again, if you do that early on, I think people make the mistake of, well, he's a heavy mace guy. Yeah, but you just picked up a heavy pickaxe or whatever that's adamantine or whatever that's +1. That's a solid damage dealing weapon. Well, but he's a heavy mace guy, and then you get caught in this trap of that's what he should always wield. That's bullshit. I do this because I know he's going to find them, and it reminds me that anytime a good heavy mace comes along, the first person I should check should be Harrim. And again, they're really, really good ones, as we'll show you. So this is why I pick heavy mace as a weapon focus. Notice we went, again, this is something that's available only because I have a mod, the Eldritch Arcana mod, additional traits. Because we were given him at level 1, we were not allowed to pick any traits at the beginning, like you would for any other character. If I exempt him down to level 0, and then pulled him back up to level 1 and on up, I could pick those traits for him. So that's something that you'll see in another upcoming video. But for right now, the best I can give him is 3 traits. 3 if I literally give him a penalty of some kind, and I did. So let's actually talk about that, shall we? So what did I give him? Well, I gave him an emotional drawback, and now normally you have to pick between either an emotion drawback or a physique drawback to get your 3rd trait. I normally pick either hedonistic for physique drawback or envy for emotion drawback. I did not pick either. Why? Well, in this particular instance, I don't mind the penalty that I'm getting from bitter. I'll show it to you right here. But it also didn't make a whole lot of sense if I'm playing role-playing style. He is not someone who's envious, and he is certainly not somebody who is hedonistic. So this is my chance to take a character who's a grumpy sad sack and make him just a bitter piddle of a son of a bitch. And this is really what he is. So it makes perfect sense to me. And notice what his penalty is. Healing from someone else, not himself, but someone else, is only a point less effective. So if he would normally heal for 5, he heals for 4. It's not that big of a penalty. And again, to get the extra trait, in my opinion, totally worth. And this is why I like this mod. In particular, I think traits add a lot of flavor to your character, and a lot of power, by the way. Look at what we picked up for our 3 traits. We went social trait, suspicious. Why? It's a bonus to perception, a trait bonus, and a better feature than you think. It's a perception as a class skill. What does that mean? If you go to your skills, you'll notice that our perception over here, it says class skill +3. A cleric does not have a class skill in perception, so it should not be there as +3. Because I picked up that trait, not only did I get a +1 from the trait, as you see there for suspicious, I also get the green check mark next to the class of this specific skill, denoting that it's a class skill, which gives you another 3. So long as you invest 1 point in it, you'll get a +3 as well. That's what class skill is. So for that one trait, I basically upped his perception 4 points, is basically what I'm telling you. That's a solid upgrade. And there's other traits like that that can buff you for trickery. It can make it a class skill. It can change your use magic device, where if you have a high intelligence and a low charisma, use magic device keys off of charisma. you can pick a trait that will key off of intelligence instead. I routinely do this. There's no need to for him, but again, you see my point. So there's a lot of really good traits for things like that, and I kind of thought that was cool. So Suspicious is the one that I picked for under social trait. And there's another one in a different category that's not social, that's also a perception buff and does the same thing. It's a +1 trait bonus, turns it into a class skill. There's ones for persuasion, there's ones for trickery, there's ones for probably athletics and mobility. There's all kinds of ones out there, you just have to go searching for them. Faith trait makes perfect sense. He's a cleric. I went with a very lame Exalted of the Society. All it does, another +1 to his channel energy, additional use per day. How many does a cleric normally get? Well, if you go over here and look at it, read all this stuff here, right down here is where you're going to see this. A cleric may channel energy a number of times per day equal to 3 plus his or her charisma modifier, which right now is a +3. Normally it's +0. He has a charisma of 10. Remember, he is a sad sack. He is not Trishan. This is why he is a terrible healer in comparison. But you can bump this up with gear. You can bump this up with points if you wanted to. I didn't go that route because I'm like, screw him. He can just be a buffer. But he normally has only 3 then. That one trait bumped it up to 4. I know that doesn't sound like much, but I'd rather have 4 than 3. So again, that's what I took for Exalted of the Society. Regional trait, and this is the 3rd trait we got for taking that emotion drawback. I picked up a regional trait called Wanderlust. If you never played a dwarf before, you'll realize that they have this penalty to their movement. So you see the slow and steady there, -10. He can never go slower than 20. So at the very least, he will trudge through as a nice solid 20 feet movement. Most people move at 30. So humans, elves, and whatnot move at 30. So he's a little slower than everyone else. And again, for a frontline tank, that seems weird because he needs to get up front and give you some distance between you and the bad guys. If you're assuming someone that's in the back shooting, say you're an archer or a sorcerer, wizard, some ranged caster type. So you need him up in the battle so that he's well away from you with all the bad guys that are surrounding him. So you want some movement. So I went with Wanderlust. Wanderlust gives you a solid +10 bonus to your overland speed permanently. As you can see here, it's an insight bonus. Again, a very neat little feature, pushing him at a solid 30 now, even in full plate mail. Then, we've even given him gear that puts him another 20 higher. I can give him a shield that can put him another 10 higher. Without one spell on this guy, with solid gear, I can get him to a speed of 60. That's a fast little bastard, and he's like sprinting all over the place. And that's pretty cool, I thought, for a tank to be a juggernaut son of a bitch. And again, makes perfect sense with his onslaught armor, which is giving him a solid +8 bonus to his strength up here. I thought that was a solid choice. So that was the other one. You'll notice as far as other stuff that's coming up here, the very next one, we have Spell Vulnerability, Necromancy. Again, something that's only available to me because I have this mod. This is a feat that is a penalty. You can either get Frail, Peg Leg, or in this case, Spell Vulnerability. One of the 3. You can't get more than one of these. Pick whichever one you want. I took Spell Vulnerability, and this gives me a chance to role play again for this character a little bit. Notice that you get to pick a school that he has a penalty for the saving throws against. Now, normally I pick Abjuration, because there's not very many Abjuration spells that you save against. It also gives you a penalty to, or a weakness to cold damage. That's the one if you go Abjuration. It's a totally serviceable penalty. But I thought, well, he's a cleric. Even though he's a chaotic neutral asshat of a cleric, he still positively heals people. So maybe it makes sense for him to be susceptible to necromancy spells and have a weakness to unholy damage. That's my thematic choice. Again, if you want Abjuration, pick Abjuration. But I'm picking Spell Vulnerability and Necromancy for him. Why would you take a penalty, Brother Mutant? Because with this mod, taking that penalty gives you 2 feats for the price of 1. So you get this as a penalty feat, and then it gives you 2 feats to pick from. So look what I picked. Steel Soul, a bonus for him being a dwarf. He already has a +2 to all his saves against spells and spell-like abilities because of his hardy nature as a dwarf. Now I jump that from a +2 to a +4 with his Steel Soul ability. And as you just saw a moment ago, this Necromancy vulnerability is a -4 to his saves against those types of spells, right? Well, he has a +4 to his saves thanks to this little bad boy. So I've just neutered the penalty for Necromancy, and every other spell that he's susceptible to, he still has a solid +4 to his save. You see what I just did there? I basically got rid of the penalty, got a better bang for my buck, and I got an extra feat besides. And what feat did I grab? I grabbed Meta Magic Extend Spell. Why? He is a buffer. Remember, he can heal, sure, but by and large, his role is going to be slap on Shield of Faith, kick off a Bless, debuff a bad guy with Bane, add things like Aid or Heroism or Divine Favor, Divine Power, Righteous Might. There's a variety of spells that he has that'll buff him or a teammate or the team as a whole, like Bless, for long periods of time. Why not extend it and double the duration? And again, it's a little late in the build to pick it up at 11, but again, he has access to level 6 spells at this point. So that means level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 spells, he can buff up one spellcaster level. That's what Extend Meta Magic will do. So a level 1 spell like Bless will be a level 2 spell now, but double the duration. A level 5 spell will be now a level 6 spell if you increase the duration of it with the Extend Meta Magic. So again, that covers a broad spectrum of stuff and will only continue to get better from here. That's why I went that route. Then I went for Power Attack. Again, it's a little late in the build. Feel free to shuffle it around. You could convince me Power Attack before Heavy or Weapon Focus Heavy Mace. But again, I'd rather he have a bonus to his swing versus a penalty to his swing and a bonus to his damage. I want both. Sure, I want both. That's why I grabbed both. But he's really not that good at swinging a weapon, and his strength at a 14 is kind of piss. Now, the first 2 points I invested were in strength, pushing him up to a 16. The next 2 points I put into wisdom, pushing that to a 20. The last point at 20, and you will reach 20 by the end of this game if you have the DLC for the Tanaber steps. You complete all the content of the game more or less. And don't even shut off XP share. Just leave the XP running for everyone, even Steven across the board. Everyone will finish at 20 by the end of the game. So you will see that, which I can definitely appreciate. But that last point is kind of wasted. There's nowhere to really put it. So I put it in strength. So instead of it being a 16, it's a 17. And while, yeah, it's wasted in that it doesn't give me a bonus to my swing or a bonus to my damage, it does allow him to carry more. So it's not really wasted. It's just not great. So again, he's a very weird duck, but all of his stats at level 1 were even. So he was going to have to finish something on an odd number, regardless. And again, I'm okay with that. But Power Attack, again, it looks like this is late in the game. It's really not that late. This game is very, very long. 13th level, you're probably, let's think of it this way. By the end of Chapter 1, you're around 5. End of Chapter 2, I'd say you're probably a square into around the 8s or the 9s. And then to get to 13, you're definitely in Chapter 4. And there's like 6 chapters at least in this game. So this is not remotely the end. It takes a long time to get to 20. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen between 13 and 20. Trust me on that. So having Power Attack at 13 may feel bad. You won't really miss it, I don't think. But again, feel free to shuffle it up a little bit if you want. Over here we have Back-to-Back and Outflank. Now these are teamwork feats, and we need to talk about this. I could have done these earlier. There's not a whole lot of limitations. Outflank, I think there's a requirement for it, but you could have gotten that pretty quickly, I think. I think it's probably a base attack bonus requirement. But Back-to-Back is easy enough to get very, very quickly. Why didn't I take it? Because again, compared to something like a bonus to your armor, +1, a +2 to your armor, why would you not want the +2? Well, this requires you have another teammate with you, say like a Miri, next to you that also has the same feat. And while I can do that, this game is team-oriented in this regard, so team feats are freaking power. If you really kit out your team more or less with the same or similar feats, you really have a pretty strong team, no matter what party composition you have. You'll have extra armor, you'll have an extra bonus to your swing, you'll have extra damage, you'll have bonus to your saves, depending on which ones you pick, of course. But the downside is this requires that now I have to sacrifice a feat pick for someone else to pick this up. Same with, that was Back-to-Back, but this is also the same with Outflank. Again, he doesn't get the benefits unless he's standing next to a teammate that has the same feat. Well, I can build for that, but then I have to micromanage it in my own little pea brain and remember, oh shit, he's only got really good armor and really good swing because he's standing next to a Miri, let's say, and she has Back-to-Back and Outflank as well. So if I ever get to the point where I'm like, well, I don't want Harrim, well, now she's at a penalty. She has 2 feats that are completely useless to her, right? Or do you have someone else on the team you can swap out? Now, having said that, you have an Inquisitor friend, Jaethal, assuming you take her with you. Jaethal has, as an Inquisitor, teamwork feats by default. They literally get them as they level up for free, no less. You get to pick from the list, of course, but that's awesome. And Inquisitor is even more badass because they have this thing called solo tactics. What does that do? Well, it literally means that their teamwork feats that they get for free, as I just mentioned, they get them. The other teammates don't have to have them. They still need to be standing next to an ally. That could be a summoned pet. That could be a animal companion. That could be a Harrim. That could be a Miri. Anyone on the team that's basically a friendly in combat with us. If she's standing next to them, she gets her teamwork feats by default. The game basically treats it as, let's say she's standing next to Harrim, or Miri, who has no teamwork feats. That's a better point. So she's standing next to a Miri. She has back-to-back, but a Miri does not. She will get back-to-back. A Miri will not, but the game will treat her as if she does, only for purposes of giving it to the Inquisitor. Again, the Inquisitor gets the benefit, the teammate does not. But she still needs to have a teammate near her. Okay? So again, while picking one or two of these is not the worst idea, earlier or later, that's on you. I know that as long as he's on the team with, say, Jaethal, she'll probably have these. Again, these are decent choices for her. Solid armor, she's up front anyway. Bonus to her swing, why not flank a target and get a +4 to your swing instead of a +2? You can see the appeal. She'll have even more than these. She'll have ones that you didn't even think about. Because again, she has free ones that she picks, like 4, 5, 6 of these damn things, as I'll show you in another video. So again, pretty nice. If you ever get the ear of a developer for this game, may I make a suggestion to the developers that you pass along? And the next time they make another version of this game, they're making Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, I think is what the next one's called. It's going to be amazeballs. But when you're picking feats and stuff, you have that laundry list of feats that are on your list. May you suggest to them that in the upper right corner of the feat, when you're getting ready to pick it, it actually has TF for teamwork feat. Just like highlighted or some kind of chevron or something in the corner to let you know, hey, by the way, this is a teamwork feat. Yes, I know you can right click it and it'll tell you, hey, this is a teamwork feat, because it'll say it under here, it'll say teamwork feat and any requirements that there are. And how who on the team in your party composition actually has that teamwork feat. So that's helpful. But you have to pick it to see that it's a teamwork feat. If it's just indicated in the corner on that list, it makes it a lot better. Because then you're like, oh, that's a teamwork feat. Oh, there's another one. Who might have that? And it draws your attention to it. You see what I'm saying? That's just my suggestion to them. But again, outflank a solid choice. Back-to-back a solid choice. Precise strike, I think, is another one. Shield wall, I think, is another one. There's shielded casters, another one. There's a whole variety of them. And again, if you play an Inquisitor, because they get them for free, you get to see the laundry list of them in one nice tight batch. So again, playing Inquisitor, you'll get a feel for which or how many of these teamwork feats are actually in this game. There's quite a few. Last pick, nothing really to say. Extra 2 channels a day. We're at 3 + 1 thanks to one of my traits. Remember, the Exalted of the Society, or whatever the hell it's called, put him to a +4 or 4 uses a day. Now he's at 6 uses a day. He's actually at 9 uses a day because, again, it's plus your charisma modifier, and that includes modified with gear. So his lane charisma bonus here, that's a +3. That's enough to actually put him at a solid, see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. So 9 uses a day of that, and that's a solid upgrade for him. Yes, this could be higher, not much higher. It could be like a +4, +5, maybe a +6. But that's pushing it, in my opinion, for someone that's not really a charismatic character. Now, on that, I haven't picked his spells. I actually deleted his spells on purpose so we could actually talk about this. So, first thing to point out, when you do a cleric spell list, notice that he has domain spells. That's these ones here in the tan. Okay, you have 2 domains that you pick from. You get at every level the ability to slot at least 1 domain spell, up to you which of the 2 you pick. What do I normally do on these? Well, what I would do is I would select one multiple times. You hear me clicking it? Why? Because I want to see if I can actually pick them down here. Nope, I can only pick it here. What about True Strike? Again, only here. Okay, and that's fine. That just means now that I know that I can't get any of those 2 down here, I have to be choosy. Which of these 2 would I rather have? Honestly, I'd rather have True Strike. Why? Protection from law. Isn't that useful? Yeah, but you also have protection from alignment, which is more useful down here. And I can get that multiple times if I so choose. Notice something when we pick spells, since we're talking about a cleric. You have that spontaneous conversion ability for a cleric, which means any of these spells I can convert into the equivalent healing spell. cure light wounds in this particular case, because he's a healer cleric. If he was a damaging cleric, one that channels negative energy, instead of converting it into a heal spell, he would convert any of his spells into an inflict spell. What does this mean? If he's a healer, you never slot these, because there's no point. I can convert any spell. I can convert all of those into those spells. So it doesn't matter. Do not do that. If he's a damaging type cleric, let's say he's your main cleric character, and you've made a cleric that does damage, do not slot these, because again, you can convert any spell that you have into these. So in retrospect, think of it this way. He's a healing cleric, feel free to slot those. He's a damaging cleric, feel free to slot these, because again, double utility. I can heal my team or myself. I can also convert it into a damaging one. In his particular case, since he's a healer, he could damage bad guys, or heal the undead, or Jaethal, who needs this. She's part of your team. Or he can convert it into one of these. So he can heal himself, he can heal the party. He can damage the undead with a touch to the shoulder using a cure spell. So again, know which ones you can slot. Other ones in this list that I think are of appeal, besides your protection from alignment early on, and later on that becomes useless. Things like Divine Favor. It's only a minute buff, but it's a +1 luck bonus to your attack and your damage. Steadily gets better to +3. That will be overridden by another spell later on. Until that time, this is a solid buff for him early combat. Another good choice in here, like I mentioned, an inflict spell. The ability to him walk over and touch him on the shoulder. Doesn't he suck at the dex-based stuff? That's not a dex-based attack. It's a melee touch attack. That's keying off of strength. Could it key off of dexterity? Sure, if he had weapon finesse. He does not. He has a dex of 8. He would never want to do something like weapon finesse. But buff his strength up, and he'll have the infinite pleasure of walking over to any fighter, barbarian, or whoever melees with him, and he can go, nope, inflict light wounds on you, motherfucker, and it's damn near guaranteed damage, and a pretty good chance he'll hit them, because remember, it's a touch attack. It ignores the shield bonus and their armor bonus besides. It's a very easy way for him to inflict damage steadily. Another one on here, stay away from your raise spells, because again, bad dexterity. Who could use raise spells though as a cleric? Tristan. Why? Because while his strength is like 8, his dexterity is like 12 or 14, so he's actually pretty good with the dexterity stuff, at least better than Harrim. Other stuff in here that's of merit. Early on, Remove Fear comes in handy. It's AoE, teammates friendly, 10-minute buff. Another one, of course, Shield of Faith. Can't say enough good things about that. Doesn't last very long, minute per caster level, but again, we have that little pip here to let you know that you have meta magics, baby. Why don't you extend that shit, make it a level 2 casting instead of level 1? And you should do so as soon as you get a meta magic, because literally it extends your spellbook quite drastically. Other stuff, we could grab things like remove sickness, your typical cleric things, like your remove fears, remove sickness, remove curses, things of this nature. Notice that of these spells, I haven't talked about these two. One is the summons. Notice that all your pet summons, your summon monster 1 through 9, you'll have access to. The upper level ones are dependent on, are you neutral, good, or evil? So be real clear on that. But notice they all take a full round to cast, though they're not my favorite. It takes a long time for you to summon things, and they don't last very long, especially at the early levels. So I shy away from stuff like that. That's not to say you won't have the ability to summon stuff that I think is useful. But by and large, I stay away from the summon monsters for a character like this. For this other one, notice this spell, Stunning Barrier. This is one of the few abjuration spells where there is an actual saving throw. So what you get is a very lame, and I can't stress this enough, duration buff, 1 round per caster level. I can extend it to double it, but right now he only gets it for like 2 minutes. If I double the duration, it's only 4 minutes. And it's only a +1 to deflection and a +1 to resistance for all your saves. Now, yes, early levels, that's at least something, but early levels, you really aren't going to have this last for very long. This is kind of crappy, but what is it used for? Not just to protect you. If you get punched in this Nas, they penetrate it. They literally will do a will save to avoid being stunned, and it dispels or discharges the spell in the process. So there is that. There is no spell resistance on that, and again, the guy that's probably punching you in the face probably has a terrible will save, so maybe that's useful. I've yet to see it be useful to me, though. But I suppose you could make a case for that. I wouldn't do it at level 1 or level 2. maybe at level 4 or up, and that's certainly as the extended version, because quite frankly, it only lasting for 3 rounds or 4 rounds is kind of shit. But having it last for 8, 10 rounds, that's not so bad, and I could see the appeal, I suppose. But then again, by the time you're using it at level 4, 5, or 6, you've probably got some better gear or Ring of Protection, so you don't really need the bonus to your armor class. So to capitalize on the stunning seems kind of weird to me. Having said that, what else would I grab for his character? Well, you better believe things like Bless and Bane are solid upgrades. Penalty for the bad guy or a bonus to our team. Bless dispels Bane, so if someone, God forbid, on the bad guy's side, casts Bane on you and your team, you have a way to counter it. And the same applies for them. If you cast Bane on them, it will dispel a Bless that they cast on themselves. So if you see them fire off a Bless spell, run right the fuck up into his face and throw off a Bane spell and remove their buff. That takes away their attack bonus, +1, and their +1 to their saves against fear. That's all it really does. And again, it's the opposite. If they don't have a blessed spell for you to dispel, you hit them with Bane, and again, assuming they fail their will saving throw, they're at a penalty to their swing against you and your team. That's clearly a buff as far as you're concerned for armor. So it's a solid upgrade. Definitely suggest that you grab stuff like this. Level 2, again, double click. Nope. How about this one? Okay, now if you really don't want to choose, I can cast Bone Shaker down here. I actually don't want that one though, so I'll take Bone Shaker up there for sure. You can grab Bone Shaker every day, all day, fire. I give a shit. This is an auto hit move, solid damage, and it just constantly scales up. Eventually it finishes off at, I want to say, 13d6 of damage. It's a solid spell. Good range on it, no less, too. Fortitude save. Hit one of those wizard bastards right in the schnoz with that shit. Watch their health just go bleh. It's very, very cool. Having said that, there's other stuff in here that's worth grabbing. What might you grab, though? Here's Aid. Solid buff. How about Bull Strength, Bear's Endurance, Eagle Splendor, and Owl's Wisdom. Notice you don't get Cat's Grace and you don't get Fox's Cunning. But we can buff your Strength, your Con, your Charisma, and your Wisdom. Either yours or a teammate's, or a pet's for that matter. But again, those are okay. You'll probably find gear that makes those obsolete very quickly, but until that time, remember his strength is 14 at level 1. Why not give him a little lovin', jump that shit up to a plus, or an 18, so it's at a solid +4 to his swing, +4 to his damage. You can see the appeal early on, and then just spec it out later. Delay Poison is an amazing buff. Immunity to poisons while it's on. If you've been poisoned, it will delay the effects of it. Honestly suggest you don't do that. Try to buff up ahead of time. Now, again, I get it. Sometimes you get jumped. You can't cast a spell fast enough. You don't know who's going to get poisoned. Maybe you've buffed him, but he gets poisoned. Again, you have other reasons than to want to have more than one of these. But the point's still the same. It's a long-lasting buff. If you can pre-buff up, this is the one you want first. So you're just straight up immune. And there's a lot of good fun you can have with teammates' interactions, with them casting poison AoE spells on you, a tank that's in the front ranks. You see the appeal here. But again, that one's good. The communal version is better. That's coming at level 3. That's the one that buffs the whole goddamn team for an hour. You can see the appeal. This one's still a staple. It's a solid choice for the time that you grab it. Other stuff, things like, your removes paralysis, your lesser restorations are staples. So lesser restoration, and greater restoration are definitely ones you're going to grab. Resist energy, much like communal resist energy. This is a good version. The communal version is better because you're covering the whole goddamn party all at once. That comes again at level 3, but a solid choice. I'd grab stuff like Aid, as I mentioned. I'd grab stuff like, not necessarily Sound Burst, but I can see the appeal. It's AoE, it's crap damage, but it is sonic, it's not heavily resisted. The real reason you like this one is because it's AoE, not team friendly, but you can hit like a casting of like wizards and clerics in the back ranks with this, something at range, and have the minor damage go through, but the fortitude save, or they're stunned, that could come in handy, especially for a squishy that's in the back ranks. What's the chances their fortitude saves is high? So I could see the appeal here. I'm not saying I'd put it in there every day. I'd be more inclined to do that, or this, so that he would have the protection and then she would have the protection, or he would have the protection for this fight. It wears off after 10 minutes per caster level. Maybe you clear a dungeon, maybe you don't. oh shit, I gotta protect from a different type of energy. So maybe I buffed up against acid, but now I need protection from fire. You see the appeal here. So again, that's on you for how you slot stuff up. For level 3, again, double click. Looks like I can have Dispel Magic more than once. Can only have Rage once. I would never pick Rage, quite frankly. It's not the worst spell ever, but it's one of those where it's a buff, but it's also a penalty, and then you can't cast spells, you and your team, whoever gets buffed with it. And that's a very bad FU to your team. So I suppose if everyone's out of spells, this is better than nothing, but you should never get to that point. I'd rather have Dispel Magic. Of the stuff that's in here, there's just too many to go through, but there's some honorable mentions besides your communals. Here and here. Notice you can remove Curse, remove Disease, remove Blindness are all staples. You'll probably have to rest to get those on your list because you're probably not packing those with you everywhere you go. So if someone gets blind and you don't have a potion or a scroll that can remove it or a wand, well then you can at least slot this up, take a knee, and then the very next day, once you have learnt the spell, dispel it, basically. Scum save that shit, of course. But Magical Investment is a solid buff. Prayer is a solid buff and debuff for the bad guys all at the same time. It's a win-win across the board. And again, I would, of course, extend that version, make it a level 4 casting, so you have different options. I shy away from things like curses. These ones are appealing in that they're like permanent debuffs. But I mean, let's think of it this way. Are you really going to curse somebody and then come back tomorrow to finish them off? No. Will the DM curse your teammates and then come back later to finish you off? Yes. So this is a spell that's amazing for the bad guys to use on you, not so much for you to use on the bad guys. Yeah, sure, there's a penalty to them and all that shit for that one fight, but the whole goal is for you to kill them off quick, right? So unless this is helping you kill them off quickly, I can't see the appeal. I'd rather have another Animate Dead spell. Now, on that Animate Dead spell, why did I say that I don't want monsters, but I'll happily take this one? Look at how fast this one casts. Standard action. So if, let's say, you're in the front, you're the tank, one of anyway, you're up front, you take a big spike of damage by pure dumb luck, bad luck, and you need to get the F out of H. What do? You cast something like Animate Dead at your feet, and then you use your movement, because this is just a standard action, you use your movement now to get the fuck out of there so that the skeletons can tank for you while you backpedal, cast a heal, chug a potion, do whatever you need to do to, top back off again before you run back into battle. That's my logic here. That's a solid upgrade. And again, I wouldn't hesitate to grab a couple of those bad boys. Notice there is protection from energy here. I honestly, between it and resist energy, I'd rather have resist energy. I'd rather have both. But if given a choice between one or the other, I'd rather have this one. Why? Because they never wear off. I mean, they run out of time. 10 minutes or 10 minutes per caster level, depending on which one you cast. But look at this one. It lasts for a long time, Brother Mutant. Yeah, but it only absorbs X amount of damage. So let's say you set this up for protection from fire. You're at max level, so you get 120 points of absorption. They hit you with a fireball, and a fireball so many times that eventually you've absorbed 120 points. It doesn't matter if you have 500 more minutes on the clock. It's now popped and the spell's gone. So basically it's just temp HP against one element type, whether it be acid, cold, electric, fire, or sonic. Sonic's not heavily involved in the game, so usually the first 4. But the point's still the same. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it makes you straight up immune to whatever damage we're talking about up to that 120 points. But after that, it's gone and now you're taking full damage. Well, what does resist energy do? It just lessens the damage by 10 or 20 or eventually 30. So if you take that same fireball spell, if they hit you for 30 damage or less, you're still immune. If they anything over 30, you subtract 30 points from it. And again, it doesn't wear off. It just has 10 minutes of time on you. So for every round for the next 10 minutes, if it's fire damage, I have 30 points constantly being removed from every attack. That to me is better than just a massive HP pool from only fire or acid or whatever. But again, given the choice, I'd rather have both. But I'd also rather have the communal versions of both. So I would not slot that more likely than not. Level 4, again, freedom of movement. You can do it multiple times. How about fear? Only once. And this is a good spell. So I will actually do something like that. Hell, I might even do 2 freedom of movements, one for him and one for the other main tank. Because again, being paralyzed straight up sucks, yo. So why would you not want to have a spell that you could pre-buff up? It lasts a long goddamn time. 10 minutes per caster level, and you're at level 4 right now, which means your level 4 would be level 7 character, Cleric minimum, to get this. So that's going to last you at least 70 minutes. That's a long buff for you and the other tank. And why do I keep saying the other tank? Let's talk about this. You're definitely not going to be the only tank up front with Harrim. You're going to take someone like a Miri who can fight. Maybe she's not the best tank ever, but she will also be a good meleeer, and she has no choice. So she'll be up front with you. Or maybe it's Valerie. Or maybe it's Jaethal. Maybe it's 3 of you. But at least have 2 of you up there. Why 2? 1, you're setting up flanking for the other person. 2, remember those teamwork feats we talked about? If you have any of those, you need to have someone next to you. So there's that. And then the other reason is one tank is not strong enough, no matter how well you build them, to taunt all the bad guys onto that one person. What does that mean? 10 guys rush Harrim. Say he's the only tank up front. 10 guys rush him. Are all 10 going to stay on him while the other 5 of us are back here peppering these guys with spells and arrows and whatnot? No, some of them are going to bleed over and rush your team of squishies in the back ranks. But if you have 2 or 3 tanks up front, now you got a pretty good chance that you're only going to get like maybe 1 guy bleed through. The other 4 teammates turn and kill that son of a bitch, Johnny, on the spot, and then you start piddling off the other guys while Harrim and the other tank basically turtles up and does their best to survive it. That's the goal, right? So that's why I keep saying the other guy. This is a solid, though, 1-2 combo. Death Ward, another solid 1-2 combo. Other stuff in here, Divine Power for the main character, in this case, Harrim, because it's a personal effect. Doesn't last long, but remember we said Divine Favor is good, but will get retired eventually? This is the thing that retires it. It's not that Divine Favor's complete garbage at that point, because, again, you will run out of these spells, too, so feel free to slot Divine Favor at least once. But this guy will last a decent amount of time. It's the same luck bonus, that's why you can't use both at the same time. I suppose you could, but it'd be wasteful. But you get a bonus to attack, a bonus to your damage, a bonus to your strength checks, a bonus to your strength-based skill checks, athletics, and a bonus to your HP equal to your caster level, max 20, and then an extra attack around. This is an amazing buff for someone that's a meleeer. Just run in and activate Divine Power and just go to town. Other stuff, Restoration is a solid choice. Dismissal might be okay. Greater Magic Weapon. This is only because I have a mod, by the way. This is a spell that's unique to this mod. Solid choice if you don't have a magic weapon that's at +5 yet. Here you go for long periods of time. That's not your cup of tea. Maybe you want something like Airwalk. Decent armor for melee. Immunity to difficult terrain. That includes things like web spells and grease spells. And then you get a +10 to your mobility check, not that he cares, and it lasts a good long while. So you can see the appeal for some of the buffs. Remember, I said he is a buffer who can heal. Tristan can do this shit too. But again, he's probably better in the back ranks, buffing up, healing people, and then just doing what he can do for ray spell damage. You know, like Spit Venom and things of this nature, where there's a hit check. That would be something that Tristan would probably excel at. Level 5. Acidic Spray, you can only get it once. How about Bone Shatter? You know, multiple times. I will actually take Acidic Spray, though. Different damage type, solid damage. Again, you gotta be careful with it. And Bone Shatter is so good that I would actually grab it 1, 2, 3 times. But you probably won't. Just to give you other suggestions for what might be useful in here. Teammates die. It's going to happen. Why would you want to waste a very precious scroll of resurrection or whatever and some diamonds, which are very expensive, to resurrect their happy ass when you can just... If in the first 2 rounds of them dying, you can cast Breath of Life on their ass and it brings them back up to above 0 HP, they're back on their feet and alive. Poof. Breath of Life is amazing. So again, I can see the appeal. And you can even use this for a heal by itself. So if they're damaged but not dead, you can still use Breath of Life to heal them. I don't know that it's better than Cure Mass Cure Light Wounds. Yeah, it's probably better. Single target anyway. But you could still convert it, is my point. So feel free to slot at least one. Cleanse, another fine example of one that's a decent spell. Single target heal for yourself only, but removes a variety of penalties. And again, he's going to get inflicted with a lot of shit. So having the ability to remove blindness, confuse, daze, etc. and so forth, when you can, that comes in soup's handy. Just saying. Other stuff. Now this rarity of a chance for you to do some AoE damage, Flame Strike is a solid contender, especially against undead. Other stuff in here that's interesting is like Righteous Might is pretty damn good. This is another solid buff. He gets bigger, he gets stronger, more con, less dex, gets some armor besides, and some resistances. Better size weapon category. Basically it's a enlarged person but on crack. It's an amazing ability. Other stuff, auto hit powers like Slay Living. There's no to hit check on this, right? Nope, there is a melee touch attack, but it's a melee touch attack. Remember, he's good at those, so it's a touch range. And again, solid damage, fortitude save. Kind of a drag because for a melee touch attack, a fortitude save means you're probably not going to use it against the fighter or the barbarian that's coming up on you. But if there's, say, a wizard or a rogue, they usually suck at fortitude saves. Here's your chance to do some damage to them. Spell resistance is another viable option for a buff. Again, getting spell resistance equal to 12 plus your caster level. In his case right now, that's 32 total. That's a solid buff for a long amount of time, and that can be cast on you or a teammate or a pet. That's a solid upgrade. True Seeing, Airwalk Communal. Again, where's my protection from energy? Did I miss that back here? Yeah, protection from energy communal. I should have mentioned that last level. Sorry. But again, any of the communal spells are something you should at the very least look into. So again, there's a variety of good choices here. Banshee Blast. You can only get it once. Harm. You can get it multiple times. So I would do this just to prove to yourself that you hate that. It really is not that good. I would honestly do Harm more than I would do that. And I would actually do Harm once at least, and I would match it with a heal at least once. Probably twice, because sometimes people really need it. And again, he can cast that on himself. Picture him losing with a bad crit roll half his health. He's down to 153. He casts this at full strength. That's 150 back. He's back to full. You see that? And again, it also removes conditions like dazzled, dazed, diseased, exhausted, fatigued, poisoned, etc. and so forth. You get the appeal of something like heal. You can also use this offensively on undead. Don't use this on Jaethal. You could use this on Jaethal, the healer, though. She's undead. You could also use this on bad guys and damage the bad guys, so as long as they're not undead. So again, you see the appeal for this 1-2 combo. The Cold Ice Strike is a solid choice. Greater Dispel Magic. Maybe you're getting tired of all those clerics and wizards buffing up the front ranks of the barbarians and the fighters that they're sending to you. Again, you're in the front. Strip off all those buffs from those sons of bitches, AoE style. You can see the appeal for that. Other stuff in here that might be of interest. I'd stay away from, again, your Ray spells. So Elemental Assessor, Hellfire, Ray. But Chains of Light is auto-hit. Eagle Soul, sadly, is a great spell, but he can't use it effectively because he's not good. And it casts on him. See that? Because he's chaotic neutral. If he casts a spell, he gets all this buff, which is an amazing buff, but then he becomes sickened for the duration of the spell. If he's evil, which thank God he's not, but if he was evil, he would actually be staggered for the duration of the spell. He would still get all those buffs, but then he wouldn't be able to do anything anyway with those buffs, so what do you care? It's a very weird spell. But if you're good and cast that spell, or if you're immune to sickened or the staggered condition, I suppose, this spell, the buffs that you're getting are solid buffs. Bonus to strength, bonus to armor, and again, those are sacred bonuses. They stack with all the other bonuses we've been talking about. So that's a solid upgrade. Blade Barrier, again, AoE move that does some solid damage. Banishment from when they're starting to summon pets on you and your team, and you say, fuck that shit, banish their pets, make them go away. There's just like a DC check or whatever, and poof, they're gone. So it's just an amazing upgrade. Undeath to Death, again, you are a cleric. You also have probably Circle of Death in here. No, you don't. Okay, no, I'm just thinking the wizard then. But again, a solid spell choice. Decent stuff to pick from. Word of Chaos, you can get multiple times. Disintegrate, you can only get once, and quite frankly, of those two, I actually like Disintegrate better. It's a race spell, though, so there's a chance you'll miss. That's not great. Better than that for me is Destruction, because I think that's an auto-hit spell. There's a Fortitude check, but it still does solid damage, 10d6. It's only a single target, but hey, if you're hitting, say, like a wizard at range, and he fails that Fortitude check, 10 points of damage per caster level, that's 200 damage at the max level here for us. It's a solid screw you to a bad guy. Bestow Grace of the Champion. Now, this is an interesting one. Cast it on a teammate or yourself, but you have to be lawful good. Whoever receives the spell needs to be lawful good to receive the benefit. They basically get a lot of things that a paladin gets for free. They're immune to diseases and fear, and if they have a high charisma bonus, greater than +0 obviously, they can add whatever that bonus is to their saving throws. So add this to a sorcerer who has a high charisma already. Add this to a Eldritch Scion who has a high charisma by default. A Scaled Fist Monk who has a high charisma by default. You get the appeal here. If they're lawful good, they get all these wonderful immunities and a massive bonus to their saves for an okay amount of time. It's a solid spell for a buff. Not for you, but for a teammate. Other stuff like Create Undead. Now, yeah, it's a full round to cast it. But a Grave Knight or a Guardian Armor, you get to choose between which you summon, when you cast the spell. Those are decent, and they last a long time. So I highly recommend you get at least one in your pocket. And it can help you and someone else tank on the front ranks pretty easily. Other stuff in here that's of interest to me, again, because I have a mod, I have Lesser Miracle and Wish and Lesser Wish, or whatever the hell it's called. So this is a solid, I need a variety of spells, but I don't know what to pick, so I picked this. That's a decent choice. If you don't have that because you're not playing with mods, Jolting Portent's good, Greater Restoration is good. Again, all good choices. Level 8, Cloak of Chaos or Horrid Wilting. You can only use Horrid Wilting once, and it's honestly the one I want. Man, I love the pictures of this now. They've updated this very recently. They used to look okay, but now they look very sharp and snappy. But I love the artwork that they got going on here. Horrid Wilting's an amazing spell. Greater Angelic Aspect's amazing. Firestorm's good. Death Clutch is okay. Frightful Aspect's fun. Maybe you want to trap them in a Rift of Ruin. Maybe you want Storm Bolts. Maybe you want to summon an Elder Elemental. Decent amount of stuff in here is my point. And you're starting to get to spells that just do damage more than you're getting buffs. But on buffs, Greater Angelic Aspect, long-lasting, self-buff, decent amount of protection, immunity to acid and cold. And I can't stress enough the importance of immunity to anything in this game. You can always find a trick that you can use in combat if you have a character that's immune to something. You immune to acid? Cast Acid Fog on that son of a bitch. He's immune to it. All the bad guys around him that are clumping up on him are just having their flesh melt off. Immune to cold? Throw Cone of Cold through the son of a bitch as he wrangles everyone up in the goddamn corner. He'll be immune to it, and everyone else will have to make saving throws to keep from taking full damage from that Cone of Cold spell. You're immune to crits? Send them up front. You're immune to sneak attack? Again, send them up front. If you're immune to fire damage, Fireball spell on top of that son of a bitch every chance you can. Again, you get really good at figuring out what kind of immunities a character has. Immunity to poisons. Throw down Cloud Kill or Stinking Cloud in front of the son of a bitch. He'll stand in there and not be affected one whit, but everyone else will be having fits, grief, and blind spells as a result of that shit. He'll definitely appreciate being immune to stuff. So anytime you see immunity to blah, read up further to see if it's something of worth merit. And you definitely want this one. But again, solid choices. The one other one that's a buff in here is Frightful Aspect. Again, a self buff, decent and lasting buff. Size bonus, so this is kind of like your Righteous Might, but better. You get even stronger, even more con, no dex penalty, even better natural armor bonus and solid resistance, and some spell resistance built into you. Half your caster level at this level is 10 plus 10, so you have a spell resistance of 20. It's at least something. You get an aura, where you basically are scaring bad guys or shaking, frightening, if you will, the bad guys around you in a circle, meaning they're at a penalty. That's a solid screw you power. Amazing buff that you would want to have. So again, lots of good stuff to choose from. Over here we have Summon Monsters or Tsunami that you can only get once. Honestly, I'd rather have the Tsunami. Overwhelming Presence is decent. Mass Heal, I'd grab 2 of those. Polar Midnight's good, and while Energy Drain is decent, it is a race spell. You're not really good at those. At this level, you're not that bad at them either. But still, it's one of those where you're not the best. This would be something I'd let Tristan fire off. But you could in a pinch, and it is decent. Notice that if you strike an undead with this, it used to be that it buffs them for temporary HP. Remember, you summon undead, so you have the ability to buff them, right? Well, sadly, with the mod I'm using, I think that takes that away. But if you're playing the vanilla version of the game, I do know this does work. And Jaethal, remember, is undead, your teammate. So you can buff her with this spell. Boop, energy drain that bitch, and give her some decent temp HP for a decent amount of time. She will appreciate it. I'm just saying, there's some uses here besides the typical. This is a solid character. I know this video's gone on for about an hour, guys, and I apologize for that, but I've done it 4 times now. It's gone from 2 hours down to an hour and a half, down to an hour and 20, and now down to an hour. So I think I've done a good job. But this is what I would do for a typical, boring cleric build for Harrim. Just the last thing to talk about as far as gear. Remember, he's sword and Bordnet, but in our case, heavy mace and Bordnet. This is one of the best maces you can find in the game, Sovereign. +5 mace every time you hit a new opponent in a combat. So every time that it says, time for combat, if there's 5 guys there to hit, make him hit every guy once. Why? Because each new opponent you hit, for the first time you hit them, for the rest of that battle, you get a stacking bonus to your armor class, your attack rolls, and to all your saves until the battle is over. Then they all wipe off you. So if there's 5 guys to hit, you just got to technically the potential for a +5 to his AC, +5 to all his saves, and a +5 to his swing, just making him a more badass mofo. And then go through and start killing everybody. But this is a solid weapon for him. If no one else is going to use heavy maces, he should be the guy to use it, in my opinion. You have a solid amount of shields, heavy shield, even some light shields that are decent. Immunity to crits for someone that's up front. It's a solid choice. Remember I said immunity to things are power in this game. We have ones that increase your armor as well as give you spell-like abilities. We have ones that increase your speed, 10 plus 10 to your ground speed. I can get him up to a 60, like I said, with nothing more than this shield, this armor, and that one trait that I have, the Wanderlust. And he's zippy as all hell. So again, there's all kinds of stuff you can do here. The best full plate armor you can find, this isn't the only one, but there's a variety of choices. But he's a full plate guy. Heavy armor's his thing at level 1 on up. Give him some good stuff. And this is mithril, so it's light. And it makes him extra zippy. And it increases his strength +8. You can see the appeal for some of these things. Give him some extra armor, give him some bonuses to his wisdom, and maybe even charisma. Damage reduction is always appreciated for a front tanker. A variety of ways to increase his dex and con with belts. And while normally I'd say, well, what about strength, dex, and con? Remember, the armor is giving him strength. Until that time, though, because this is late in the game, give him a belt of Affect, for instance, a +4 to strength, dex, and con. And he gets the ability to activate legendary proportions where it gets big and does extra damage once a day for 13 rounds. Again, he's a front tanker. That's a solid option for him. But the moment you get that better armor, then just downgrade him to something that's only a dex con belt. Notice this also gives him immunity to poison. Again, another immunity, something that he can key off of. We have rings here, Ring of Chaos. Remember, he's chaotic neutral. Ring of Chaos is a solid buff to deflection armor and freedom of movement. He can never be paralyzed again so long as he wears that ring. That's a solid buff. Immunity. Remember we said immunities are power. Here's a weird ring that you wouldn't even think about, but it's a Colossus Ring, a +2 luck bonus. That's important to con. Notice if I look at my con over here, not only do I have my bonus enhancement +8 from my belt called Devil's Sash, I have the +2 luck bonus thanks to the ring. That's extra fortitude and that's extra HP, baby. He's got a solid HP by the end of this build. For a character that started off with a con of 16 to finish off at a 26, he's doing pretty good for himself. And part of that, yeah, is because of the toughness feat that I picked. The ring also gives him the ability to cast Enlarged Person twice a day as a level 1 wizard. Now that only lasts for a minute each time, but early on, that's an extra strength bump. Yeah, he's a little more clumsy and he's easier to hit, but he's already a freaking tank anyway, so a -1 or -2 to his armor class is not that big a deal. I still maintain that's a solid ring choice. We got a nice bracer, Charon, I think I'm saying this right, Charon's Touch, spells that he already had access to or should. Harm, once a day. Greater False Life, twice a day. That's a solid buff for a front tank guy. We got gloves that give him extra armor against undead. Made sense for a cleric. I know I'm going to theme here. There's plenty of other gloves you could have grabbed. Again, you'll have a whole kitty of to choose from. I gave him Swamp Dweller boots. You don't have to. But again, he's up front. So immunity to ability damage and ability drain, that's a solid thing because he's going to get hit a lot. Even with his armor, he's still going to get zapped. So having him immune to shit like this, that means I don't have to worry near as much. Again, how you do him is up to you, but by and large, there's plenty of choices to make a solid frontline cleric from Harrim with mods or without mods. Now with that, my name is Brett the Mute. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you think of this build. Do you like the format? What would you like to see next? I'll get working on the next video here before too long. It won't be Harrim, it'll probably be Amiri or Lindsay, and I still have yet to figure out, I need to figure out how to de-level them so that I can make her the Mad Dog from level 1 on up for that person that was looking for that build. So that's going to take a little bit, but I'll get you there. But with that, I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.